Hello everybody, welcome to today's session, Learning Vocabulary for Life, our series of webinars talking about going from boring to brilliant using the thoughtful classroom approaches with tools and strategies. I'm Tom Dewing, Senior Associate, Silver Strong & Associates. I'm delighted to have you with us today. What we do is we're going to be taking a scenario and taking a looking at it and how we might change it using some of our tools and strategies from our award-winning books. Today's books are going to be the Tools for Thoughtful Assessment, Tools for Conquering the Common Core, and also the Core 6, series of 6 strategies that are essential for instruction today. Let's take a look at our scenario, and this is drawn from an actual situation that we saw a number of years ago in a classroom, and I think it typifies many of the type of situations we see in a classroom. Mr. D believed that it was important that the students know the key vocabulary words of the novel before they began reading. To begin each unit, he would have the key words on paper. The students would find and write the definitions from the words from the glossary of the text. The next day, the students would exchange the papers and, as a group, correct for the answers. Well, we know the importance of vocabulary, and a lot of teachers tell us that they do instruct in vocabulary. We know it's important because through vocabulary, there's a verbal intelligence that's attained by the students, the ability to communicate with other people. There's an ability to comprehend new information through studies. That academic achievement is higher when there's a higher level of vocabulary. One's level of income, a correlational result perhaps, or perhaps a causational, that when one has a higher vocabulary level, there's a higher level of income from the person, and also there's a level of self-confidence and self-image that's attained through a high level of vocabulary. But for a moment, before we get into our scenario and our transformation to a dynamic classroom, I want to just mention the idea of the word of being rich. Now, we all know about being rich. We'd like to be rich. We'd like to have more money, but I'd like to talk about rich just for a moment as the term number 2 says, plentiful, abundant, of value, such as a rich dessert or perhaps a rich experience that you have with a family member. You see, being rich is important. Being rich gives a value and a level that we wish to attain. But a wise old man of mine, a friend of mine one time said, you know, you're not rich enough to buy cheap. He was talking about if you're going to take the time and the money to buy something that you want to use for a long time, don't buy cheap, because if you buy cheap, you buy twice. I mean, it's our belief through the thoughtful classroom that you're not rich enough to teach cheap. Few teachers, if any, have enough time, resources, energy, days in the weeks or days in the year to teach in a cheap way that has to be taught over and over again. So the question arises, what would be a rich vocabulary lesson? What would be a rich way to instruct vocabulary? We know from our research and our experiences in the classroom as thoughtful educators over the 40 years that we've been doing this, that rich vocabulary instruction has certain characteristics. One, it's multiple exposures. It's not vocabulary given on Monday, defined on Tuesday, tested on Friday, and never seen again. The student needs to be exposed to it multiple times in order for it to become part of their own. They have to see the word and use the words in a multiple of areas, not just in the subject area that it's associated with, but in a variety of subject areas and in a variety of situations and scenarios. Rich vocabulary instruction is developed on that conceptual level. The power of concepts and conceptual teaching cannot be overemphasized. Concepts, as Gagne said one time, is what we understand with, how we communicate with others. And by teaching conceptually, students have a way of owning the words and being able to identify with the words, becoming rich in the vocabulary that they're using to communicate and also to understand others with. It has to be viewed as an ongoing unit, that our instruction in vocabulary as a consistent and contiguous unit begins the first day of school and ends on the last day, and then is connected to the next year. That is rich vocabulary instruction. That's going to be teaching in a rich way. So the question arises again, how do we get this? How do we have this type of rich vocabulary activities and endeavors within our classrooms? And we believe we do it in a thoughtful classroom way using our tools and strategies. For today's transformation from what Mr. D initially did to how he transformed his classroom, we're going to be using the following tools and strategies from our books. And just as a means of reviewing them for people, we'll take just a few moments to look at each one individually. First one is from our tools for thoughtful assessment. It's the vocabulary knowledge rating. See, this helps students become more self-directed vocabulary learners. It gives them a sense of where they are with the vocabulary before the unit or lesson begins and where they are afterwards. Gives them a sense of direction, gives them a sense of ownership to it. This is a sample that's given. The words are provided to the students before the unit begins. They rate themselves on it, and then through the vocabulary instruction that comes with this, these units and these words, the students then rate themselves at the end. So there's a self-assessment, a self-consideration on the words. Another tool we'll be using is the association triangle, and I love this, that by relating unrelated concepts together, a deeper understanding develops of both ideas. And this tool, the association triangle, does that. As an example, we have a math triangle in which we connect rhombus, square, and rectangle together. Notice how the student was asked to write a sentence, which is a concept between square and rhombus, and then rhombus and rectangle, and then all three together in the middle. This helps the students see the connections, the characteristics, the attributes of each of the words, and how they are connected together, deepening their understanding, deepening, again, their ownership of the words. Here's an example from a literature triangle. Again, recounting the plot and looking at the central message of this particular reading. Another tool that Mr. D is going to be using is the vocabulary storytellers. Again, students are assigned to create a story using the words. And by taking these words, again, in a different context, in a different emphasis, in a different meaning, they're able to, again, develop a deeper understanding and being able to use the words in their ability to, in their areas of communicating to others. Inductive learning is from our Core 6 strategy book, and it's really based on the idea that no idea is an island. All the ideas we have are interconnected with one another, and by interconnecting the ideas and by making an association with them, the students again develop a deeper understanding, a deeper awareness of the vocabulary terms. So in this case, we're going to have the students take the vocabulary terms, rearrange them into groups, categorize the groups to see how they are connected together. A large strategy from our book, The Core 6, is the vocabularies code. And it's based on the idea that in order to have a rich vocabulary instruction, we have to help the students connect the words, organize the vocabulary, process it in a deep sense with a variety of exercises and tools, and elaborate upon their meanings. This comes from the Core 6, and it's basically a strategic approach to direct vocabulary instruction. I think that's a key understanding right here. Many teachers do a lot of activities with vocabulary. But by having a strategic approach, meaning having a strategy with a understanding and vision of what you're trying to achieve through a direct vocabulary instruction, that vocabulary instruction becomes rich, becomes more meaningful for the students. This is an on-demand webinar. You can again look at it a number of times, but this is a chart showing some of the activities that are associated with each of the vocabularies code, the connecting, the organizing, deep processing, and the elaborating and exercising. Again, teachers will tell us we do many of these things. In fact, these were gathered from our research and our activities with teachers, but now we place them into a way in which we select them to achieve our goals of having the students crack the code by doing the activities of vocabularies code. Here's the transition. Remember how Mr. D originally had the students look up the words in the dictionary and take the test at the end. Now they're doing a variety of things with this transition. Let's take a look at how this matches what we know about great vocabulary instruction. There's multiple exposures. He has them doing a VKR, inductive learning, placing the words in different groups. Also notice on this that as they are placing them in different groups during the inductive learning stage and categorizing them, Mr. D walks around challenging these students by taking some of their words, placing them in other categories, asking the students to rename the categories, rename the association these words have together. See, he has a variety of activities that they're doing. And the word wall becomes something of an active sense. Some teachers have some word walls that are becoming great wallpaper on their walls. In this case, we're having them use the words from the word wall. Multiple areas. Again, they're placing them in different groups. They're using the words from the word wall. We develop the conceptual level so that they're grouping the key words and categorizing them, helping them make sense of them by putting them into the groups, and through the deepening exercises, and again, using the words from the word wall. And then it's viewed as an ongoing unit. The words that these students are introduced to, this first part of the unit, they will be using and reusing, understanding them more deeply, these words, throughout the rest of the year. They are now becoming friends, if you will, with these words and associating with them. You see, we can make a rich vocabulary experience for the students to where these words become something that becomes a powerhouse for them, allowing them to communicate with others and understand more ideas better than they ever had before. This is what we're looking for when we make it a rich vocabulary for ongoing learning. Kristen, tell us a little bit about what else we have for them.
Yep. Thank you very much for taking this time to take a peek into the Thoughtful Classroom with Tom Dewing. For more information about our resources and our Thoughtful Classroom professional development opportunities, you can contact me directly at kperini@thoughtfulclassroom.com. Give us a call at 800-962-4432, and we'd love to connect you with Tom and your colleagues in your school to see how the Thoughtful Classroom can help you and your students. Remember, it's all about the learning.